Hi, and welcome to Classical Stuff You Should Know, the Love Edition. Because it's like Valentine's Day soon. The day, the corporate holiday where...
Nope, stop, no.
Okay.
Wait, when is this coming out? Is this coming out on Valentine's Day?
No, the week
Valentine's
of.
is Friday, so this is coming out on Tuesday, whatever the Tuesday is.
Anyway, we are
11.
a classical podcast. Well, we're a podcast about classical stuff. The classical world, classical literature, old stuff.
We can say art because we did it twice.
We've
Twice,
done art
yeah.
now. We haven't done architecture.
But we claim it,
although
yeah.
a faithful listener did send in a suggestion for architecture, and that faithful listener was my father. So Mr. Donaldson has emailed us in a suggestion of some architecture, the Hagia Sophia, to do a podcast on.
Do you ever tell students, like, Mr. Donaldson is my father?
No, because I love
Call me Crush.
No, I love being called
Crush.
Mr. Donaldson. I love it. I specifically love being called Sir. I'm not being ironic. It's
You do enjoy that, really?
I do.
Okay.
Very much. Anyway,
Why would you be called Crush? Was that what is that?
I was quoting Finding Nemo.
Bless you.
Mr. Tortoise is my father.
God bless you.
Mine's Crush.
That's
Isn't that right?
Something like that.
I have no idea. Sure, yeah, it sounds great. Maybe it's an Office reference. I don't know.
kid.
Anyway.
Anyway,
Yeah, just wait until you have to watch the same movie 300 times.
That's the thing. I'm not at
gonna
that point yet. Yeah.
well, today we are going to learn about love. And Thomas, this is a companion to a year ago,
Yeah,
right?
sure. Great.
Where we talked about funny, ironic love.
No, 100%
Or failed
authentic.
love?
No, definitely was 100% serious.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the only what were our examples? One was about Satan and whoever.
Sin and death.
Yeah, that one.
yeah.
That was a fun one. Anyway, not a great episode. So hopefully we can fix it.
Kids turned in an essay this week on Paradise Lost called "Satan, Satan, Why You Be Hatin'."
Good. Did they get 100 just based on the title?
It made me chuckle, but I haven't read the essay yet.
How do you feel about titles like that, pun titles? I encourage them.
I do too. I feel like high school is a time to be a little. Yeah, it encourages the better angels of their nature.
The 900th Iliad essay title I
exactly.
get, it just makes me want to scratch my eyes out. So if the title is at all interesting, I'm happy.
Which is a better score? Is that what that means? No,
means-
you're in a better mood while you're reading it.
I openly mock students who use things like Iliad essay for their title. I just circle it and then I draw a little person sleeping in a bed next to it with zzz coming out, like, just puts me to sleep.
Disheartening. That's also one of my favorite parts about senior thesis is that I feel like there's kind of this competition to the titles of wanting to have the funniest one. So
Within reason, because this is a public thing on stage.
Yes, but it is a thing that AJ will announce before they get up on stage.
Exactly.
So usually they'll get some kind of punny title in there, which is very.
We've had to shoot a few down.
We have definitely
really?
had to shoot
yeah.
a few.
Oh,
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
bummer.
Yeah.
They will be locked in the thesis archives forever and not published on a podcast.
We should do an episode on that. Okay, no.
Nope.
Okay, so today we are not talking about thesis. Yes, so if I know how a calendar works, which is, kind of touch and go, so we'll find out. This Friday is Valentine's Day, so I thought I would try again at this topic of a classical approach to love. So,
Love.
yeah,
Bum,
I thought there'd be more singing at this point, so
Love. Bum,
Yeah.
love.
I'll let you keep going. I got time.
The lyrics writing session for that song was short.
Intense.
They came together really quickly. That's what I heard that about the "All I Want for Christmas Is You" song. That came about in 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Isn't that insane?
I heard that when Eminem writes songs, sometimes he'll disappear into the bathroom for like 20 minutes and then come out with something fully written.
Good for him. Well,
That guy's a
Like Milton.
lyrical wizard.
I don't think that's how. Wait, no.
Milton would have a scribe next to his bed and he'd wake up and just start spouting iambic
Really?
pentameter, and the scribe had to scribble it down.
That was he human? Anyway. Okay, so
Eminem?
the selections for today, we will be spending most of, I didn't hear what you said. I wasn't paying
So
attention.
just like Eminem.
Yeah, neither are human. I feel good about that.
Is it like Milton was the Eminem of the 18 whatevers?
That's right.
Sounds right.
Bit of a bad boy.
When did he write? 18
No, 17,
Before that,
1600s.
1600s. Oh wow. I was
Sorry,
way off.
maybe we're sandbagging you.
No, this feels good. I love banter. So today we're going to be, again, spending time in the symposium. So we'll be talking about a little bit of Plato, some arguments that go back and forth on the nature of love. Tell me what you're giggling
That
about.
book is awesome.
I love everything about it. So the selections themselves come from a book I hate the title and the cover.
I love the title and the cover.
Oh, well, you're a better human than I am. Anyway, I almost hesitate to anyway, I don't want to. Okay, the name of the book is Wing to Wing, Oar to Oar. Isn't that just
No. Readings on courting and marriage.
That's that little subtitle there. Yeah, I like that part, but Wing to Wing, Oar to Oar is very funny to me. The AJ is looking quizzically, as one should. There's a wonderful painting of two people, it appears, getting married. Is that what
one appears to be a friar?
That's what I didn't want to ask too many questions.
He's just wearing a cape.
Did he kill a friar and then we
killed a friar? Yeah, to break into the convent to get hurt. That's not how that works. Anyway.
Wing to wing, oar to oar. How romantic.
Is that good?
Is that like you're flying
and rowing
together? But
if you're oar to oar, then aren't you in two separate boats?
No.
No. You're chained in the bottom of the
Stop.
slave.
No, wait, no. Stop. This is going. I don't
Wouldn't
like
you be
this.
in two racing like sailing boats?
Yeah, there you go.
You could have,
if the oars touch each other.
Have you ever been in a boat? Because you can have two people that are both rowing. You have to row together.
But then we're not oar to oar. I'm like behind their person.
But also the two wings shouldn't be touching. Like that. That's not how flying
then you're
works.
flying in formation, side by side.
Okay.
I'm so confused about the metaphor.
Okay, great. It's about marriage and courting, so don't worry about it. This visual humor is also probably wonderful to podcast listeners, so hope you're having fun with this. This book came across my way through First Things. First Things is a magazine we've referenced, umpteen times on this podcast. It is a podcast, or it's a well, they do have a podcast, but it is a magazine on, I'd say, current events, political, social issues. What I say, not from a Christian perspective.
It's America's foremost religious magazine.
Yeah,
published.
there you go. It's not, just to say, it's not always Christian authors who are contributing to it.
Really?
Yeah, even in the founding of it, I believe there was like Christians and Jewish writers coming together to like write on shared kind of like moral visions for America.
And they have one on sports called Second
Things, yeah, and then I guess everything else is Third Things. I don't really know.
That's like fashion.
Yeah. So they will periodically offer what they call intellectual retreats, which is a title that I very much love, and they will have a book that's kind of the central piece of that literary retreat. I did not attend this retreat. I just was blown away by the insanity of this title, Wing to Wing, Oar to Oar, and so went and bought a copy of it. So this is my life. So this book is a collection of stories of writings from other works. So there are these separate sections on aspects of courting and marrying, and then so there's kind of like an intro to that section that is written by the authors Amy and Leon, I think is his name. They're married, yes.
Oh, perfect.
Amy Cass is a senior lecturer in the Humanities Collegiate Division at the University of Chicago, and Leon Cass is the Addie Clark Harding Professor in the Committee on Social Thought in the college at the University of Chicago. So they're both there as well.
University of Chicago.
University of Chicago. So good for them. So that is where these readings will come from, and that will kind of organize our time in these topics. I guess I think I'm going to be spending most of my time quoting things from these two different sections, and then we will respond and maybe bring in some other story or some other readings depending on how this goes, and then see if we can get somewhere with this. So I guess this is the section that both of these readings from the symposium come from is a section titled "Is This Love?" It has an introduction, and from that introduction we explore, in the general introduction to this anthology, we explored the ambiguity and the meaning of love, distinguishing romantic love from two other loves, friendship and love of neighbor. While philia for friendship and agape for love of neighbor is how they define that here. While remembering these other loves, this section concentrates almost entirely on eros, on passionate or romantic love. That's how they're defining that, just to be clear. So, what a weirdo. That preoccupies the lover with his beloved, the soul-searing desire that drives lovers pell-mell into one another's presence. It is this love, intense, focused, exclusive coupling that is generally regarded as the love which points to marriage and which is itself the germ of marital love, at least in those cultures such as our own in which people wish to marry for love.
That's so nice.
Is it? Is that a good introduction to that? So this is...
I'm all about searing passion.
Good for you. I think that's a good thing.
I'm just imagining the being driven pell-mell into each other's presence. Like, you both just sort of run into a room. And you're like, oh, you're here.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Better get married.
Right away. Yeah. That is part of the what is funny in this whole book is that in thinking about romance and in thinking about romantic love, they very clearly center that in pointing to marriage, which I don't think is like a common Like if you were to talk about romance now, that's I don't think those two are necessarily tied together or coupled together. So that's part of there is a moral vision to this book of what romance is supposed to point to.
Jane Austen knew what was up.
Because
the books are about
getting married. Yeah. And zombies. Did I read the right one? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Mm-hmm. We watched that movie for Bad Movie Club also.
Was it good?
It was very entertaining.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was a good bad movie. I think I would put it in that category.
Either of you guys ever read Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter?
I have not. I saw the trailer to that movie. Does that count as having watched that movie?
No, okay. I mean the book. I actually read
Oh.
Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and apparently the guy did a bunch of research, and it's actually, if you take out the vampires, a pretty solid biography of Lincoln. So I actually know quite a bit about Lincoln
The
sans vampires.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I mean, you know about it with the vampires, just to be clear.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it's usually pretty easy to parse what is the added vampire content. And what
I bet
is
it would
not
be tough.
added Vampire.
Yep. Crushing it. Okay, so we are going to be talking mostly about two sections from the symposium. Graham, you have done an episode on Plato. We spent, do you not remember this?
I have.
No, you did an episode, maybe it was on Socrates actually, now that I think about it.
Okay.
Good talk. Good talk. In this episode on Socrates, which I swear to you that you did, and that I went back to listen to make sure I was not stepping on your toes.
I remember it.
Okay, well, that makes two of us, except the person who presented it. You bring up the symposium. Do you remember anything about the symposium? Maybe not what you said.
The symposium is a drinking party.
Thank you. Great.
And in that drinking party, there are a number of interlocutors in Socrates, and there's a dude named Alcibiades who is trying to get Socrates drunk because he wants to hit on him, I think. And in the symposium, while they're drinking, they all posit their own philosophies of the nature of love.
Yes. Did any of them stick out to you from...
There was one where, I can't remember if this was Socrates or if this was somebody else, that had essentially that... back in the day before, like at the beginning, human beings were one soul, and then they got like cleft into two, and you had the dude part and the lady part. And then when you get married and come back together, the soul is made whole.
That was a different person, and that's actually the first of our two readings is that one. Okay. And then the second one will be the one from Socrates.
And then the one from Socrates I can't remember.
Yeah, which makes this even more exciting. AJ?
Mainly because the first one was like, I think the way it was described to me in first year philosophy class, it was like, it's like if you had a marshmallow and you cut the marshmallow in half, and then when the two marshmallows came back together and you mush them together, you couldn't tell that it was not one marshmallow, and it just made me think that like about marshmallows getting married.
We can make that happen.
Thank you. Good. That's going to be a really helpful centering image. AJ, is there any...
Mr. and Mrs. Mallow?
That's good. I like that.
The marshes.
That makes actually much more sense. Do you have any... have you spent time with the symposium, this section on the definitions of love? Is there any point of reference that you have for it?
No.
Okay, cool. This will make me feel much better. Again, the last time I read through the symposium was early college, and I also had no point of reference, for which I'm very thankful that the Casses did the work for me to pull this together.
Oh, so their author picture on the back is like them sort of standing next to each other.
They're kind of cuddling up in this picture, right? They're getting a little close to each other. So anyway, happy Valentine's Day, y'all. Okay, so I guess I'm going to start in the symposium. This is from Aristophanes' speech on Eros. I guess maybe as a helpful...
Oh, Aristophanes is
yes,
there?
So Aristophanes is the one who gives this first story, which we'll go into what it says. Do we know anything about Aristophanes?
Not a fan of Socrates.
Not a fan of Socrates.
Wrote a play called Clouds, where Socrates comes in as a character as a crazy dude. And so Aristophanes was a real person and a real playwright and did not like Socrates.
Correct.
And wrote plays where Socrates was a doofus.
Yes.
And now he's showing up in Plato's symposium.
And maybe this is helpful. Based on what you just said, will Plato portray him well or poorly?
I can't remember. I think he portrays him...
Oh, this is fun.
Well, or does he portray him poorly? Maybe he portrays him poorly. I can't remember.
So Aristophanes was a Greek playwright. He wrote comedies. Graham is referencing The Clouds, which is the play that is specifically mocking Socrates. In this play, Socrates, I believe the character is in fact named Socrates, but he essentially corrupts these two. It's a father who wants to gain knowledge. He teaches him on like things that don't matter. We've talked about this on the podcast before, but it's like, how high does a flea jump is a question they spend a lot of time like really diving into. And they have this whole section on like, we're going to melt some wax to put fleas in it to determine how tall they're jumping. And it's supposed to be absurd is the point of that example.
Wait, but how?
Yeah, thank you. Our next episode will be on that. Don't worry. The Clouds is again one of his most famous. Lysistrata also is one of his most famous about the wives of men in a city trying to prevent their husbands from going to war, and the frogs also. So a number of he was a comic playwright is the main important thing to say.
Google says 18 centimeters.
7 inches.
Yeah. Vertically.
I'm glad that both
They
of you
can also fly.
Now, to be clear, neither of you all were like talking. Like I think independently, you both looked it up. I appreciate that yours was in centimeters. That's and yours is in inches. So wonderful.
Mine was in like what the rest of the world understands, and yours was in your like weird American
in the right
one,
way. Yeah, exactly. That's what I
where
heard
you like
say.
measure things on like I don't know, like household objects,
Cool.
like feet and
Yeah.
yards.
What's wrong with
and
that?
What else you got? Stones.
Yeah, like
Forearms?
Yeah, forearms.
Yeah, normal points of reference for lengths and sizes.
Right. Anyway.
Cool. So this is from Aristophanes' speech on Eros. So there have been a few other people who have spoken at this point, but I am skipping over them because I am in the driver's seat right now. So this is, again, starting to quote from Plato, but this is Aristophanes speaking in the story. For Eros is the most philanthropic of gods, a helper of human beings, as well as a physician dealing with an illness, the healing of which would result in the greatest happiness for the human race. Wow. So as our starting place for how do we get to what romantic love is, this force described as that romantic love is the most philanthropic of gods, a helper of human beings, as well as a physician dealing with an illness, the healing of which would result in the greatest happiness for the human race. So I shall try to initiate you into his power, and you will be the teachers of everyone else. This is how he starts. This is toward the beginning of his description, naturally. So this is what Graham was saying. You must first understand human nature and its afflictions. Our nature in the past was not the same as now, but of a different sort. First of all, the races of human beings were 3, not 2 as now, male and female, for there was also a third race that shared in both, a race whose name still remains, though it itself has vanished. For at that time, one race, secondly, the looks of each human beings were as a whole round, with backs and sides in a circle.
So this is why they're marshmallows.
Yeah, naturally, which is not too far off. And each had 4 arms and legs equal in number to his arms. So 4, thank you, Plato. And 2 faces alike in all respects on a cylindrical neck. But there was one head for both faces. They were set in opposite directions, and 4 ears, and all the rest that one might conjecture. So 2 sets of everything. Each used to walk upright too, just as one does now, in whatever direction he wanted. And whenever he had the impulse to run fast, then just as tumblers with their legs straight out actually move around as they tumble in a circle, so did they, with their 8 limbs as supports, quickly moving in a circle.
So they just sort of like rolled around?
Yeah.
Does he have any like fossil records to back this up or anything?
Any tracks where it's like foot, foot, hand, foot,
It's like
foot.
the
clearly they're
Cambrian
like-
explosion.
Yeah.
New body types.
Of the marshmallow people. Isn't this? Anyway. So they themselves were globular. How do you like that as a description of a person? So I thought that was very funny.
Are we still talking about love? We're still talking about Eros with these globular people?
Yeah, love is globular. Is that not your takeaway from this? Okay, so they are...
I think the Beatles wrote that song, actually.
Love is globular? You want to sing a couple lines for me? Cool. So they're like happy and content, which apparently is a problem. Zeus and the other gods deliberated as to what they should do with them, these marshmallow people. And they, the gods, were long perplexed, for the gods knew neither how they could kill them and obliterate the human race, for in that case their own honors and sacrifices from human beings would vanish, nor how they could allow them to continue to behave licentiously. Then Zeus thought hard and said, in my own opinion, I have a device whereby human beings would continue to exist, and at the same time, having become weaker, would stop their licentiousness. I shall now cut each of them in 2. So,
Yikes.
yeah, yikes, I feel like is the right reaction to this, doesn't that?
So they're like, if we kill them all, they won't give us any more stuff.
Yeah.
But we also don't like licentiousness, because if that's what they were trying to get rid of, that's a hard miss.
Yeah, by splitting them into 2,
Yeah.
because clearly that didn't work out
If the
so
goal
well.
was to make them less licentious, that was a swing and a miss. Yep.
Yeah, it's a relevant part I skipped over. Now the globular people, were awesome in their strength and robustness, and they had great and proud thoughts. So they made an attempt on the gods. So they were trying to get the gods out of power. They're trying to take over. They attempted to make an ascent into the sky with a view to assaulting the gods. And that's when Zeus says, nah, I'm good.
Well, they were great climbers with all those limbs.
Apparently, they're somehow able to move in the same direction, but I guess that's through rolling around like a marshmallow. Okay, so Zeus says, hey, let's split them up. And so as soon as he said this, he began to cut human beings in two, just like those who cut apples in preparation for pickling, or those who cut eggs with hair. Gross. And whenever he cut someone... Whoa! Oh, we don't want to skip over this? Sorry.
Cut eggs with hair?
I'm just reading the lines to you, man.
Let's
you wanna,
unpack that one. What's going on there?
That's the part that we're going to really stick with?
I think it's got to be like hard-boiled eggs, right? And with the hard-boiled egg, you need to cut it.
With hair.
And if you use a hair...
Like a horsehair?
Or
It
like
just says with hairs.
Even you just pull it through.
As long as it's long enough. I feel like it should be a horsehair, though.
I mean, you could.
Yeah.
It's got to work. I know that when you're working with clay, you cut it not with a big knife, but with a piece of wire. You drag it through.
Listeners, if any of you have
Again,
experience
of all the things that have been presented to you also
cutting
far,
eggs.
it's the hair that is...
Okay, fine. If any of you had any fossil records of globular people,
We can
please
start
send
there
those
too.
in too.
Great.
And if you plan on trying out this whole hair thing, send us a GIF.
Please don't. Please, for the love of all that's good,
Or
don't.
a picture. I would love to see this in
I
action.
have no interest in that. Cool. Okay, so they all get cut up. Apollo comes in so the people get cut in half, but they have to get tied up like a bag. And so Apollo comes around and does that. So that's weird. That's a detail that apparently was important to include. So people get all shaped up and they don't look like they're cut. And so then they are set to go. How do you all think this will work out? Do you all think this will be good?
Well, then falling in love is like coming back together and becoming one globular whole.
When its nature was cut in two, each, desiring its own half, came together and throwing their arms around one another and entangling themselves with one another in their desire to grow together, they began to die off due to hunger and the rest of their inactivity because they were unwilling to do anything apart from being with one another. And whenever one of the halves did die, and the other was left, the one that was left tried to seek out another and entangle itself with that. But
We've all been there,
but
right?
But they die. The other half dies off is what the point is.
But it's just when you're, so in love, you just neglect food and...
This
There's a Futurama episode about this.
about people dying from being in love.
Yeah, well, they invent Lucy Liu robots, and so all the men have Lucy Liu, and so they aren't motivated to do anything because they don't need to get girlfriends anymore. So they stopped working and they stopped doing useful things, and so Lucy Liu bots were outlawed.
It's fair enough. So I guess that's kind of anyway. What is happening here is that they are complete with each other. Is kind of how it works. This might not be clear just from hearing me jump around in the story and tell it poorly, but there's no procreation in this world so far. And so the change that Zeus makes is that the coming together of man and woman now will create children that are then used to continue the human race. And that's his answer to the problem.
Appreciate it.
That, right, that there get to be more of us, right? So that the problem was that there was no...
Fruit?
There's no fruit of that relationship. And so because of that, they were complete in themselves. And so now they have someone else to focus on and someone else to care for.
So Zeus created children to drive a wedge in between the
man and
lovers.
wife.
Okay.
Because the lovers were just perfectly, happy by themselves, and then, children came along. This is taking a weird turn. Okay, this is fun. Asher, when you're 30, anyway, you're a wonderful child. I just want to be very clear. So it is really from such early times that human beings have had and born in themselves eros for one another. Eros, the bringer together of their ancient nature, who tries to make one out of two and to heal their human nature. So it is really from such early times that human beings have had, inborn in themselves, eros for one another. Eros, the bringer together of their ancient nature, who tries to make one out of two and to heal their human nature. Each of us then is a token of a human being because we are sliced in two. And so each of us always is in search of his own token.
Okay, so wacky mythology aside, there's something to it by saying falling in love and being joined with somebody else is somehow creating a greater whole than being by yourself.
Yes.
Even though, it's sort of a silly story, but there's something to it.
say more about what is to the story, like what is good about this story. What does Aristophanes' story get right? Maybe
That
to start
there
there.
is that that there is something right and good and I don't know if natural is the word, amplifying of of binding yourself to somebody else,
Yeah,
I guess.
that's good. What is Aristophanes' main focus, though? What is the purpose of romance in his conception here?
Wasn't it like the healing of a illness
Yeah.
or something? He
So
said
that's
at the beginning.
the quote at the very beginning.
That one I take a little more issue with.
A helper of human beings, as well as a physician dealing with an illness, the healing of which would result in the greatest happiness for the human race.
Yeah, I mean, I've always sort of taken issue with the idea that you need to find some other person to. I know this is kind of just going against what I just said, but taking issue with you are only happy and whole if you have a beloved, because
Right, because
or another person can fix you, or another person finishes you or completes you.
yeah, that's the whole image that he's using.
Yeah.
That it's not even. There's almost something like predetermined to it that you were cut off. You were cut off from someone for whom you were specifically knit together or made, and now you are looking for that person. And once brought back together, it's bliss and happiness, and life is good.
St. Paul would differ.
Is this where we get the idea for soulmates? I feel like this is the originating story.
I don't know about that, but it
It
definitely.
wouldn't surprise me if
Like
yeah.
there's one person
person.
out there for you, and that if you don't find them, you're totally hosed. I think this is where that originates.
That makes
I'm
sense.
just going to go ahead and say that this is confidently. And
Say
so
what? Oh, say
this
that
where
it is the
starts.
start of soulmates.
We are the
And,
experts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are.
we have a podcast.
Yeah, we do. Yep. We have microphones.
Say it with confidence, and they'll believe it. That's
Is
rule
that-
number one of teaching.
I feel like by saying that we're saying it confidently, we've undermined ourselves on this one.
fair point.
I guess I'll move past that. Okay, so you all are taking some issue with that conception that so the one person, the soulmate. I guess you've commented and said this is the start of soulmates, but is that a bad conception? Is that a bad idea?
I think so.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
I think that it's the same danger that runs into sometimes the Christian doctrine of predestination, and that's that you believe there is one path for your life, and if somehow you miss an opportunity or you get off that path, everything is totally hosed, right? So when you pray to say, know God's will for your life, if you understand it in a certain way, then maybe you make a mistake and you don't take an opportunity, and well, you're off the path and you can never get on it again. For example, if you had a girl that you liked in college and then it didn't work out because you didn't communicate well or something,
Right.
then she got away and you can never ever find your soulmate again because you screwed it up, right?
Sure.
And then you have this bleak view of life that you never have another shot. And I think that's silly.
Yeah,
I think it's really damaging.
I think that's fair.
I agree. I mean, the real satisfying work of love is not in finding somebody that makes you happy, but in actually putting in the work to have it be fruitful, to have it be meaningful. I'm a strong proponent of the choosing to love somebody through your actions and through your disposition than the sentimentality of hoping that somebody comes in that kind of meets these needs.
Yeah.
Because I think that ultimately gives you license to dispose of people if your needs aren't being met, and I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Or
No,
I don't think that's a Christian thing either. I think
Oh, well, I was the moment you guys aren't filling my needs,
when you're done with this.
I'm done.
Yeah, you would have dropped this after. I think I joined in podcast number 10, so that's probably when you would have left. Anyway, I think I ruined the whole thing. Okay, so you all are getting at great things here. Okay, so there's kind of this determinism to it, which is perhaps unhelpful. That Aristophanes, Plato through Aristophanes, is putting a huge amount of weight on just the natural fit between two people. That you were, in fact, made for each other to begin with. You were looking for that person all during life, and there's kind of this anxiety, AJ, that you're getting at, both to find that person, but also to ensure that they are the right person. Mm-hmm. Maybe then to tie in what Graham is saying, if you have any problems with that person, then it causes you to question whether you are in fact made for that person, right? Like, what does the problem mean? Is it something to work through or a sign that there's like a huge problem? So I think these are, helpful problems to point out in it. Maybe the other part that we kind of, it was briefly brought up and then moved on. Aristophanes has a pretty low view of children in that regard. Also, that husbands and wives were perfectly content and happy until I guess they starved, but other than that, but they were happy until they died, and then children are there to kind of give them something else to focus on. It's to put that wedge between the two.
Yeah, it's to, divert their focus.
Yes.
It's to dilute their love.
Yes. This is kind of a bummer. So that will...
And you guys are saying this isn't right.
Like a prism, scattering your love about.
Is what children do?
Yeah.
I guess that's... Yeah, sure. That because it was too intense to focus purely on one person, so it had to be spread out and shared, which is kind of a bummer. Though it does keep them alive, so maybe that's a positive statement he's making. Okay, so this is all on Aristophanes. I guess I would also say that it's this probably isn't the right phrasing for it, so tell me what words you would use. It's like a very high view of romantic love. It's like romantic love is the great physician. It's the great healer. It's the thing
mission of your life.
Yeah, is to find that one person. And so it's put into this like it's a very high category. It's this very important category, which not to say it's not important, but I think Aristophanes would probably put it as the most important. Just the way
he says so. Right?
Yeah,
the god Eros was the most something god. He had the adjective.
Most generous was that he?
Yeah,
the most philanthropic of gods.
Philanthropic.
The most philanthropic. So even more than I don't know. Wouldn't you think Zeus would? Anyway, whatever. But yeah, most philanthropic of the gods.
Zeus was cutting us all in half. I don't think he was philanthropic.
He had Apollo do it.
Dude had a giant
his,
sword.
yeah.
I'm not buying it.
Yeah. We at Veritas recently had the 9th grade history classes. Each section of the class became a different city.
Ancient Greek city.
Ancient Greek city, yes. And then some of the teachers got to be Greek gods for that. AJ, I think you were Ares?
Ares.
Yeah.
Some kid, I'm looking at it. Some kid made Ares / AJ a big giant spear.
Like a legit spear.
It's awesome.
It's huge.
And you
It
have
has my name on it.
a wooden catapult over there?
They've been giving me tribute like crazy, and I felt guilty after like the second gift because I asked for tribute, and then I got a spear and a catapult and free food and all kinds of stuff.
A whole cake one day?
A whole cake one, and so I'm feeling guilty with the kids spending money on me. So I requested something else, and the tribute continues to roll in.
That's awesome.
Why
are you complaining
you
about?
Dispense favor, Ares.
Yeah, seriously.
I have.
Yeah.
I made.
You picked champions for your
spike ball.
Yeah. So
I
they
made one
had
team play with left hand, and then I made the next team play with only one shoe.
So for the teachers who are Greek gods in this get to bless or curse people who make them, please them or displease them. Anyway, so
I didn't participate mainly because I didn't read the email in time.
Oh, well.
But I would have been who's the god that drinks in the woods?
Bacchus.
Yeah, I would have been Bacchus.
That's great. Awesome. I got to be Apollo. So it was a very fun time. One of the 3 city-states made me mad. So anyway, anyway, it was a fun time. Okay. But they wrote me poems.
They will remember the Greek gods for the rest of their life.
Exactly
after this
right.
Week.
So, Josh Graham, if you listen, you did a great job for that.
Good job, ninth grade history teacher.
Okay. So that is one conception of romantic love presented in the symposium. Now, Graham said this, the symposium is this drinking game back and forth. The conversation essentially continues. So Aristophanes puts forward, this is his view, but that's not to say that it is the view. So others will be presented. I believe it's the last of this section on Eros is Socrates' speech, is Socrates talking. Does anyone want to take a guess?
I can't remember, but I remember it being like a major bummer.
Oh, really?
Well,
that's so
okay,
interesting.
let me put it this way.
Okay.
Not romantic.
Yes, that's probably the right way to put it. So this section, Socrates, or again, Plato's portrayal of Socrates is just so funny in that he is not wanting to claim this knowledge for himself. So he's trying to be very humble with this as he's like blowing people's mind with this perspective of love that's totally different from all the ones that come before. So he will reference someone that he learned these things from. And I'm sure I will butcher pronunciations as I always do. Diotima of Mantinea.
Oh, that's right.
Diotima.
Yeah.
So Diotima is I think she's either a priestess or like a prophetess that taught Socrates on these topics, on love, on romantic love.
Whoa.
So what gets weird, they give her a weird title that I'm sure we'll come across. I'll say it at some point and you all will get awkward and we'll go from there. But anyway, it's a very funny section. But he will attribute to her all the wisdom in this section. He shows up to ask her questions, and unlike many of the other conversation partners he has, like she has wisdom on something. Does that make sense? Like he pushes in questions and she has good answers the entire time.
There you go.
Yeah.
Which never happens.
Which never happens, right? So
I'd take that elective.
to ask questions.
The love elective?
Oh, is that that'll be anyway weird. Okay, so
First days. Let me tell you about marshmallows.
exactly. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, it seems like the right place to start. Okay, so this maybe Graham starts getting at what you're asking. So Socrates begins in this part. We'll go back and forth between him and Diotima. How do you mean it, Diotima? Is Eros after all ugly and bad? And she said, hush. Or do you believe that whatever is not beautiful must necessarily be ugly? Absolutely. And whatever is not wise without understanding? Or were you unaware that there is something in between wisdom and lack of understanding? Socrates says, what is this? Diotima says, don't you know, she said, that to opine correctly without being able to give an account is neither to know expertly nor lack of understanding. I'll actually skip over this because this is like in the weeds. She will eventually say that Eros is like halfway between beautiful and ugly. Huh. So yeah, so whereas Aristophanes might have just said perfectly, Eros is beautiful or Eros is necessarily good. The section opens with he's in the middle. The god is in the middle between the two of these. Let's see. And Eros is in some ways between a god and a mortal. So in fact says just as before, Eros is between mortal and immortal. So we start this section with like a lower view of the role of romantic love. He's called a great demon, but I don't believe that's meant in the negative sense.
That's more of a technical term for somebody that's less than God but greater than man. A daemon, like a demiurge also is sometimes maybe how it's translated.
For demon. So it's not like a militant demon. Or yeah, sure. Thank you. That noise was wonderful. Thank you. That was exquisite. Thank you for doing that.
Like a metal album.
Yeah. What is happening right now? Okay. I'm
just giggling over here in the corner. You guys are
I
great.
like that. No, can we do a metal album together? I think this would be good.
Yes.
Good. This section continues. I'm going to be skipping over a lot of the argument here because it's the very end that gets the most interesting, but I don't want to totally skip over. So I don't know. Just follow along for the ride. This is Diotima speaking. For wisdom is one of the most beautiful things, and Eros is love in regard to the beautiful. Eros is love in regard to the beautiful. And so Eros is necessarily a philosopher. And
that's the bummer.
Oh, you think so?
That's the like... it's like the philosopher is the head of the city. The philosopher is the best lover. The philosopher, it's.
But this is funny because I think it's flipped in this. It's not philosophers are romantic love. It's romantic love is that force itself is a philosopher.
Okay.
I don't think it gets to a bummer point. I will be curious if you all agree with where Socrates gets to because there's no reason you should. So I'll just from the beginning of this line this is kind of her Diotima's conclusion on kind of where does Eros fit between good, bad, ugly, beautiful, wise, unknowing. Where does Eros fit? For wisdom is one of the most beautiful things, and Eros is love in regard to the beautiful. And so Eros is necessarily a philosopher. And as a philosopher, he is between being wise and being without understanding. There's something for you. As a philosopher, Eros is between being wise and being without understanding.
He's a sophomore.
He's a wise fool. That's right. So, is that when anyway, because the freshmen don't date very much, but then it starts sophomore year?
The freshmen always date.
Good. His manner of birth is responsible for this, for he is of a wise and resourceful father and an unwise and relentless mother. I skipped over that section, but he's a servant of Aphrodite. Oh, yeah. Father is Zeus. And okay. So anyway, that's his wise father. So it's that Eros fits in the in-between there of those two. So it's both knowing and not knowing. And I think this is closer to the experience of love. Mm-hmm. It's the certainty of the object of your love, but kind of a mystery of where that love comes about. It's the foolishness that determines how one acts, like in relation to the person that one loves.
Oh, I thought you were going to get a little confessional.
I can't. I don't know. I can share embarrassing stories. Is that what we're here for right now? I figure at 40 minutes in, people who aren't going to listen have already deleted, so we can get as awkward as we want to.
That does make sense. The fool, and then also the assurance. I thought he was getting at that because wisdom is inherently something worth loving,
Mm-hmm.
Eros, who is a lover, would love wisdom and therefore is a philosopher.
That's what it seems like to me. And I'm wondering if, does Dhatma, this person, it's Dhatma, right?
Uh-huh.
Am I getting it right? Do they explain more what the wisdom is and what the unwisdom is? Have we hit that yet?
Yes, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. Or rather, the process of determining what that I will say again, it's the love of the beautiful. So maybe.
So it can be unwise if it is picked an unworthy object?
Maybe. This is interesting because so when we talk about like the ideals, like classical ideals, we talk about good, true, beautiful. When I hear wisdom, I'm thinking truth. Maybe you all aren't thinking that. Do you all like it, the way that Eros is going about this is to know what is beautiful. That is a true romantic love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Would you still call that wisdom?
I mean, if you, especially in the classical world with the unity of true, good, and beautiful.
Yeah. So I will say that again, Diotima will focus on beauty specifically here. That's just something to think about. It's almost like a rejection of kind of a rational side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Is I think what they're getting at with what Eros does. But again, these are things that we can push back on. Is it okay? This is more about again how love operates. What about those beautiful things of which Eros is? It is more clearly expressed as follows: He who loves the beautiful things loves. What is it that he loves? Socrates says that they be his, that the object of love be his. It's this, they want to possess the thing that is loved. I feel like Thomas Aquinas is quoted in here. That is a thing that he will use as his like circle of love. Like, anyway, love has an object that
What's the circle of love?
It's like the circle of life, and it rules us all. That there are there are stages to love, that love both has an object outside of oneself,
Mm-hmm.
that there is a desire for that object, and then that desire leads to then movement toward that object.
Oh, okay.
That the goal of love is the union with that thing.
Okay.
And that doesn't have to be a person. That, if I love books,
Pizza.
then it's like
Yeah.
buying
Oh,
books
okay.
is the culmination of that love.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the circle that he draws. Anyway, he pulls it from here. That is why I like that. Okay, I'm going to get to the end of this. So
then how does that work with a person?
Yeah.
If we're talking about love is like Eros, the god, is a fool and wise because he's loving wisdom as a philosopher. How do you see that in
Yes.
the marriage of a dude and a lady?
this is good. Okay, so the way that Socrates will describe like what is happening and why that love is important I think this is the right part to start in. So, yes. Okay. So, and first of all, if the guide is guiding correctly, he must love one body and there generate beautiful speeches. Then he must realize that the beauty that is, to stick with me, he must realize that the beauty that is in any body whatsoever is related to that in another body. Mm-hmm. And if he must pursue the beauty of looks, it is great folly not to believe that the beauty of all bodies is one and the same. It's great folly not to believe that the beauty of all bodies is one and the same. And with this realization, he must be the lover of all beautiful bodies, and in contempt slacken this intensity for only one body, in the belief that it is petty. After this, he must believe that the beauty in souls is more honorable than that in the body, so that even if someone who is decent in his soul has only slight youthful charm, the lover must be content with it, and love and cherish him, and engender and seek such speeches as will make this person better. So what's happening right here? So the progression that kind of leads to this ideal of romantic love goes like this. You find one person who you like, and I think even here it's most focused on physical attraction. Like they talk about youth, like it is the physical
body.
Yeah, the physical beauty of a person is the first point of entry into what that romantic love is. You start with one person, but then by loving and appreciating one person, you see the beauty that is in all people, not just in this one, but there is a beauty that is instantiated in one person, but common to many.
So because you love the beauty in one body, you must be a lover of the beauty in all bodies.
Of all bodies.
Yeah, but you can't put that in a Valentine's Day card. Like, Happy Valentine's Day. I love you because I'm a lover of all bodies.
This is good.
Of all beautiful bodies.
Doesn't really.
That doesn't really
feels
like.
a little icky.
Yeah, it doesn't
You
really
think so?
inspire. you know.
They can be
And then you
different.
must realize eventually that souls are better, and then love that. Are we still talking about Diotima's view here?
Yes, this is Diadema
Okay.
who is speaking.
Can we? I'm still sort of confused
Yeah.
about this whole thing. Can you put Diotima's view in like one sentence for me?
We're doing
So I
that right
can
now.
sort of- okay.
Yeah. Okay. So
That by loving one person, by knowing and loving that one person, you are sort of moving into a love of all that is good.
yes.
And it's supposed to lead you up to the love of good.
Yes. So again, Socratic dialogue is not, presenting you the initial view right off the bat. Socrates sharing this discussion with Diotima is reacting to the talks that come before that. So what stage have we set? It is a lower view of love than Aristophanes held, and in fact, many of the other speakers held. This is Diotima going into actually an understanding of to say that Eros is a philosopher seeking beauty. What does that actually look like? That's where we are right now. So the way that one finds and understands that beauty goes like what Graham was just saying, that a person has a specific person that they love. They love a particular person. That particular love is then expanded out to be an appreciation of beauty that is expressed in multiple bodies, that multiple people have some sort of beautiful thing that is appreciated across people. But that physical love is a lower love than the love of souls, the love of like the immaterial part of a person. This is then kind of, you'll see this sometimes called the ladder of love, which is kind of the main takeaway from this section. But those are loves that build on one another, that you need those earlier loves to eventually get to the higher up loves. The love of souls will lead to a love of virtue, a love of like, not just the soul, not a specific soul, but like the best way that a soul can be. The seeking after that will be the love for knowledge, and then there's a love for love at that point, that it is, the ladder progresses up.
And you can see how this eventually was probably assumed or subsumed, or whatever the verb is, into the Christian understanding of marriage being something that sanctifies you.
Yes.
That makes you more like Christ is sort of one of the three reasons why Christians get married traditionally. And so this sanctification, this bringing you up, the life and love with an individual is sanctifying you to be more like God.
I'm still confused as to how this is between wisdom and unwisdom. Seems like only wisdom to me. Can you explain the unwisdom half?
Probably not.
Okay.
So again, the point of it is that you are getting to some higher good through.
Is it because Eros then is like he's preoccupied with doing it just in the individuals?
I think maybe it's because earlier we hear she says to opine about a thing and not being able to support it is between wisdom and unwisdom. So to love someone and not be able to say why must be between wisdom and unwisdom. And so perhaps that is where Eros is between, is because he to make this tangible.
It's just a feeling,
say
man.
we've got Craig and Carla, right?
Oh.
Craig loves Carla partially because she's cute. He can't
does.
really nail it down. So it's a little bit of foolishness and he's willing to do anything for her. And then later he realizes that the love for her must be a love for all beautiful things. And then a love of her soul is a love of what's inherently beautiful in souls. And then a love of beauty and soul itself, right? So later it will become a love of the higher things, but it starts as not fully knowing or being able to support its opinion about the object.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah,
I think that
this is the same quote from before.
sounds
And
right.
so Eros is necessarily a philosopher, and as a philosopher, he is between being wise and being without understanding. What does that mean? That philosophers are growing in wisdom. Because it's between in the sense it's
The work of reason is a work from unwisdom to wisdom. So by
wisdom.
necessity, you must be between.
which is traveling up this ladder. So it's traveling up from individual people to a love of love itself, to a love of good itself, to a love of souls.
this is a little like, Eastern mysticism kind of thing, right? Like
Really?
but
We're squarely in like
you-
Western.
I know, but you sort of eventually are going to abandon the particulars for the universal.
Yes.
Which is why I remember it being a bummer.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because Craig's love for Carla will by necessity lead him away from Carla.
Yeah. I mean, that's the, or that if Craig and Carla are in love with each other, but their love is leading them to this higher place, that eventually it's not about Craig and it's not about Carla.
It's a big diffused sort of love blanket for everything.
Yeah, and then you're like the drop in the ocean, right? And then
Yeah.
and then where's your individuality? And
Yeah, I guess if my girlfriend was like, I like you, but it's me leading me to like everybody's bodies and everybody's souls.
that step especially, right?
And then what is purely beautiful and I must by necessity leave you behind, I'd be like, Again, you can't really put that in a Valentine's Day card.
And I'm not saying you should, but maybe take it the other direction. So AJ, you have recently referenced Plato's World of Forms, that above, we live in a specific historical moment. We live with like specific objects and people around us, but those specific objects and people participate in something bigger than themselves. That is the world of forms, that this table participates in tableness by being a table, that this chair participates
being an example of the perfect idea of table.
But I'm flipping that to say that is what exists. I'm using air quotes, listener, in the world of forms. But also, this chair is in chairness because there is a form of chair. Is that? And so the one way to take it is what you all are saying, is that it's not about individual people we love because it's about beauty itself. But to flip that is to say the person you love participates in beauty and is not only themselves beautiful, but is an active part of this bigger force than just themselves, which is beauty.
So when I love the idea of beauty, Craig brings Carla into the definition of beauty and therefore elevates her.
Yeah, that the thing to put in the card is that I know beauty because of you.
Oh, that's a nice
I
card.
know love because of you. And I see it in other people, but you are the one I'm committed. Again, this is a book on marriage. You are the one that I am committed to, and I want to experience love, beauty, etc. through.
Ooh,
So you might say they're like, in this instance, Carla would be like Dante's Beatrice.
Yes.
And that maybe she is not the perfect idea of good,
Right.
but she's certainly the thing that elevates Dante, right?
This is a great point, because last year, the one serious part and the only part that got a kind email, so thank you, was us talking about Beatrice. And in that we talked about it would probably be a bummer to actually marry Beatrice because she wouldn't be perfect.
There is nothing he could be but disappointed
Yes.
because he had conceived of her as perfect.
But this is then to take it the other way, to say that individual people are just by nature going to be a lower, I'm going to say this and maybe change my phrasing, a lower example of a higher ideal. So an individual instantiation is not messing up, does not ruin the ideal of beauty, love, pick your adjective.
It's just a portion of it.
Yes. And so, but I think it resets expectations in that regard to say, I'm not expecting all beauty, all love to be expressed perfectly through you always.
Now the Hallmark card's getting bad again.
Don't talk about this stuff, but do the earlier stuff and not this stuff.
So-
but this is maybe, Graham, to your point earlier of like resetting expectations, that it's not about finding a perfect person with whom you gel 100% when you meet them. It's that they point you to some higher ideal, but they themselves cannot live up to that example. So you should not expect of them perfect beauty, love, again.
Okay, so maybe to put this into a Hallmark card,
Yeah.
you would say, when I look at you, I see a mountain, and as the mountain, you contribute to the overall mountain range skyline, and the range itself will lead me to the sky.
What girl doesn't want to be compared to a mountain?
Mountain range. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. Yeah,
You guys
seriously.
don't like looking at mountains?
No.
Screw you guys.
You're
I'm
A
out of
mountain
here.
range? I don't know. Yeah, seriously.
You are a
And right
mountain of a
now,
woman.
you guys have ceased to fulfill my needs. I am out. I'm taking the
Yeah,
equipment.
good.
Give
Yeah,
me the
seriously.
microphones. I'm gone.
Thankfully, I just bought my own audio interface, so thanks, AJ. I can do my own thing.
Oh, you guys can go cheek to cheek then, because I'm taking grams.
That's what y'all did for the first 10 episodes.
true.
so
And it was
worked out for you.
terrible.
Oh, wow. You're
No, I'm
okay.
just kidding.
Good. But I think that's the point to get to it. It's funny
You're
that
my mountain, AJ.
Yeah, you're right. That doesn't feel very good.
No, it doesn't. No. Your mountain.
But you got to continue. You got to say
you're right,
you're
yes.
part of the beautiful mountain range
Yeah.
and lead me to the sky and the
Yeah.
cosmos. The stars.
So I think that's the takeaway then, is to say that the conception that Plato is putting forward here is that individual examples of people we love point us to something deeper and I guess in a sense purer is maybe the way to say that.
But they are participants.
They are participants in that. And so I think that's a thing to affirm also, to say when you see a wife participating in wifeliness, or female listener, husbands participating in husbandliness, to acknowledge that and say there's something bigger that you're pointing to and trying to honor and do well. You are not perfect in it, but that perfection still exists out there. And that's that was my takeaway in reading this. I didn't get the bummer reading that y'all were talking about. So hopefully that flips it around.
It does. And
Okay.
yeah. Sorry.
As we finish this, your conception, this discussion we've been having reminds me of a poem.
Okay.
And I think this poem would be perfect for the holiday that's
Yeah,
upcoming.
good.
You can read it to your significant other. So you guys are both familiar with the age-old poetical technique of comparing the beloved to various things.
Yes,
and
sure.
to quote Billy Collins, the writer of this particular poem, you compare them to various things and by flattering him or her make headway.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So flatter the beloved, call them the skyline, call them a mountain or whatever, and they are flattered, and then you sort of woo them. So Billy Collins found this poem that's just sort of a wheel spinning exercise, and I'm still quoting Billy Collins here, in this sort of thing, and so he rewrote it for this poet to make it better and not so terrible.
Okay.
So this is called Litany, and he quotes the original poet, Jacques Criquelin. You are the bread and the knife, the crystal goblet, and the wine. So this is Billy Collins' Litany.
Okay.
You are the bread and the knife, the crystal goblet, and the wine. You are the dew on the morning grass and the burning wheel of the sun. You are the white apron of the baker and the marsh birds suddenly in flight. However, you are not the wind in the orchard, the plums on the counter, or the house of cards. And you are certainly not the pine-scented air. There is no way that you are the pine-scented air. It is possible that you are the fish under the bridge, maybe even the pigeon on the general's head, but you're not even close to being the field of cornflowers at dusk. And a quick look in the mirror will show that you are neither the boots in the corner nor the boat asleep in its boathouse. It might interest you to know, speaking of the plentiful imagery of the world, that I am the sound of rain on the roof. I also happen to be the shooting star, the evening paper blowing down an alley, and the basket of chestnuts on the kitchen table. I am also the moon in the trees, and the blind woman's teacup. But don't worry, I'm not the bread and the knife. You are still the bread and the knife,
Good.
not to mention the crystal goblet and, somehow, the wine.
Good. I guess.
I love Billy Collins.
Yeah.
He's great.
Oh man, if you have never seen him read his own poems, go and watch him read that. It's fantastic.
He's a
His
treat.
delivery is just so dry and fantastic.
I like it.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, this has been Classical Stuff, the Love Edition.
Cool.
Thanks for listening.
Classical love, you should
Classical
know.
Love, you should know.
Uh-huh.
If you have any comments or questions, please email us at classicalstuff@veritasacademy.net. If you want to tweet at us at classicalstuff at CLSSCAL stuff. If you want to listen to back episodes, you can find that at classicalstuff.net. And if you are wanting to send any little Valentines, send them our way.
That'd be great.
If you want to write a Valentine's about girl mountains, or if you want to cut an egg with some hair,
Yep.
we'd love to see both of those
That's
things.
right.
Yep. Crushed it.
But this is Graham, Thomas, and AJ signing off.
Bye.
Lovingly. Bye.